everybody. I'm Jody Lester, and you're on Elevated Living at elevateme.org. And this is Sunday's Deeper Elevation. Now, this Sunday, I wanted to talk about relationships because so many of my friends and family members are going through relationship issues. Some of it is their own personal relationship, and some of it has to do with family members. Sometimes it's very close family members. Sometimes it's very close friends who are dealing with premarital issues, marital issues, divorce. Sometimes it's our children. Sometimes it's our significant other who has a partner who has issues with co-parenting. There's just so many relationship struggles that I think that people are dealing with right now. And so I wanted to get down to some of the problems I know that I experienced in my last serious relationship, which was a marriage. I think that at the very heart of it, we don't really vet the way we should. I usually deal with men, so I believe that most of my girlfriends do a good job at vetting. But I know that the men that I've dealt with sometimes have had a hard time vetting in their past relationships. And a lot of times we'll end up in a very serious relationship, and then a little bit down the road we'll see personality traits, we'll see hurt, there will be some damage and things said and things done that make us really look at that person very differently. And maybe, not always, some of that could have been prevented or avoided if we had done a little bit more investigating when we first got together. I think sometimes we get so excited about the newness of relationships that we run right in and we just go full throttle into the romance and the newness and the I'm in love of it all, and we forget to ask some of the important questions. We forget to make sure that we are equally yoked, if you will, on spiritual lines. Sometimes we don't vet very well to see if we are intellectually compatible. Even if we're not educationally compatible, it doesn't mean that just because one person has a doctorate and the other doesn't have but a GED, that people are better or somebody's not going to be equally matched intellectually, because there are some very highly intelligent, ingenious individuals who didn't even finish high school. That's not the vetting. The vetting is to make sure that we have the same kind of wit, that we find the same things humorous. Those are the mental and intellectual compatibilities that we need to look for. That the things that interest me, if I like word games and puzzles and you like bungee jumping, there might be some incompatibility there. Your sense of fun is adventure and mine might be Scrabble. There are going to be a lot of things that we're not going to do together, and that's going to end up damaging the relationship. We also need to vet for values when we're talking about spirituality and intellect and emotions, because people have different values. And when you're getting together romantically, sometimes there are going to be children involved. And I know that it's very important that the person that I'm involved with has values that I can pass on to my children. That their values are the values that I want to continue into the generations that would come through me. And sometimes that's not always the case. You know, you might really like a person and there may be some physical chemistry and attraction there, but their values are not necessarily the values that you want your sons or daughters to have. And is that the person we should really be hanging on to for the rest of our lives? It would be a little bit of a contradiction. Not that people have better values or mine are worse than yours, but we can reserve judgment and still know when our values don't match. We need to vet for physical compatibility as well. We definitely want to make sure that our walk with God in spirituality is matched. If I'm a Buddhist and you're Jewish, that might not work too well, especially if we're more religious than we are spiritual. We need to vet for those things. We need to vet, like I said, for our mental compatibility, our intellectual compatibility, to see if we find the same things humorous, if we have the same hobbies and we like traveling, or this person likes sleeping in and this other person likes getting up early. We need to vet for those things. We need to vet for our values, but we also need to vet for physical compatibility. Sometimes we're not physically compatible, and that's more than just romance. Sometimes we're not physically compatible in the areas of just our energy levels, how we eat, how we approach exercise. Those are things that are physical that we often overlook because the newness of the relationship makes the romance so exciting that we're not worried about the romantic physical compatibility. That's there, yay. But there are other physical compatibilities that we sometimes ignore. And if the romance department is good, that's great. But if it isn't, that's problematic. You shouldn't be with someone where the romantic part is flawed. That's going to begin to wear on the relationship, especially since most of us judge that as part of the heaviest part of how we are compatible with someone. And then there's emotional compatibility. A lot of times we don't vet for being emotionally compatible. Do you have patience? And am I a person who requires a lot of patience? Are we hysterical all the time? And is that something I can deal with on a long-term basis? Are you a person who jumps to conclusions, or are you a person who kind of sits back and watches and is calm? And are we compatible? I think sometimes we just don't vet well. We're so excited, and we want to hurry up and get into a relationship so we can get that part over with, and then we can go on with our lives. But my school of thought is that human relationships are the foundation for everything else. And if we don't get that part right, nothing else is going to seem worthwhile. Because most of the time, especially when we're talking about romance, we enter into it so that what we do occupationally, how we build our families, what we gain monetarily, and what we gain in things and resources can be shared with someone who we're compatible with, who we can see ourselves taking this journey called life with for the long term. So sometimes we can save ourselves a lot of heartache, a lot of headache, sometimes even financial suffering if we just do a little bit better job of reading resumes, doing our interviews, and making sure we're taking care of the business of our relationships. This has been JL for Elevated Living at elevateme.org. And until we next connect, I'm wishing you the very best of life. Vet well.